The ICE model is the I stands for identify and the C stands for connect. So first we want to identify what's happening, what's the moral dilemma, what virtues are involved, what ethical issues are involved, and then we want to connect it to our own knowledge, our own experiences, our own point of views, and then we want to explore it a little bit further. We want to decide were there any conflicting virtues or the point of view from each party involved, and that's what the exploration part, the process entitles. And then lastly, we want to determine the best outcome for everyone involved. Well, I definitely think that because there's moral dilemmas in all fields, there's moral dilemmas in life. So I think that this particular model can be used across the board. Again, whenever you have to make a decision that's going to impact someone's livelihood, going to impact their career enhancement, or going to impact their educational placement, I think we need to make sure that we are doing that in the most unbiased way and in the most equitable way as possible. We're going to read through this and then we're going to use the ICE model to work through the dilemma. And when we come to the last part in the ICE model, which is D, determine, we should have an idea of the best choice of action. The first thing we're going to do is identify the problem, moral or ethical issues, and the virtues present and potentially in conflict, okay? So you can use your case scenario, the other page that you had, as a guide if you need to go back to it, but I want you guys to go ahead and look through and see what are some problems, moral or ethical issues, and the virtues that are present and any potential conflicts.
Going into the virtues that are present in the situation, self-control might be something worth discussing because, again, administration brought up this problem to him because the student felt uncomfortable, and he still says that he can't promise he'll change his course of actions even knowing that a student has been uncomfortable.
I think another thing that's in conflict is like the virtue of respect. We as teachers are supposed to model these kind of virtues, and if we're not modeling respect, then the students won't understand it and probably won't show it to others. Yeah, and another virtue that is present is friendliness, because Mr. J is being friendly with his students, but that's also making them feel uncomfortable, or one of them at least. I've had personal experiences in practicum where I've had the opportunities to be around students, and I've seen mainly that they're the ones that come up to me. I'm not the one to initiate that. So that's an experience I would share that relates to this.
I work in an elementary school as a substitute teacher, and so I have a lot of interactions with students, and I completely agree with Glista. I don't think there's ever a need to approach a student physically. I think if they're upset about something, you ask them what they need, and if that's a hug, great. And especially in an elementary school, students are going to be more physical. They want that affection from you, and they'll always show you what they need. And if they don't, like I said, there's always that room for you to ask.
So you give them more than one option, right?
Yeah.
On how you can support them. That's great.
I know that a lot of families in like my practicum classroom, they are raised in a difficult home, and they may not be getting those hugs at home, or they're even allowed. So I wouldn't completely cancel out physical touch, but the students have to come to you because obviously they need to be the ones to initiate, but physical touch shouldn't be not allowed in school because the students may need it when they are feeling like discouraged or hurt. I think it also brings awareness to expressing your feelings and the difference in how we were talking about earlier, the cultures of who's in the classroom. So some students are used to hugs and they like that, but other students, such as the one mentioned, does not. And awareness to also talk about it and not brush it off. And that student had the courage to voice how they feel and wanted some change to that.
Yeah. Because it does take courage to do that, right?
Yeah.
When working in a school previously, you want the kids to come to you, and you don't want to force anything on them because they're very young, and that can obviously make this child uncomfortable. And there's also a flip side where the child could be uncomfortable due to, in his household, he might not have affection given to him, and when it is given, it's very religiously, maybe he doesn't believe in that and their family doesn't. So there could be a flip side, like in defense for Mr. J, that could be the reason. And it's hard that we don't know the background of that student, but you do see that the student is very uncomfortable, and he's showing that by going to talk to someone.
So we're going to continue to work through Explore, which is the E in the ICE model. What are the pros and cons of potential action choices in this situation?
I think there could also be a con in regards to administration. And if Mr. J doesn't stop this action that's making people uncomfortable, parents can easily get involved.
Yeah.
And then it turns on administration for, okay, why didn't you do more about this? Why maybe wasn't Mr. J terminated? Because obviously parents are going to take their children's emotions into consideration and think it's a really big issue, and it is.
Yeah.
So it's valid.
I think one option would be that the teacher needs to be monitored by another staff member or an admin or maybe even a parent. Just when he interacts with the students in like you said, the probation time period.
So there needs to be some accountability there.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And while he's being monitored, I think it's kind of like with students how we take note of the progress, and not just a pop in just to see how he's doing, but actually being intentional in being monitoring him.
This could be something too where they do a school-wide training and they like have all the teachers come together and just like train them how you need to interact with kids, because I think everyone can benefit from that. Even if you're not a teacher, I think everyone can benefit from learning how to interact with people in the correct way. But I think the only like way to solve this is having the teacher know that he only will give hugs when the child asks for it.
I feel like there does need to be a replacement there, because it sounds like that's the teacher's way of connecting to the students. But so some students are probably okay with this, some students aren't. So there needs to be some type of replacement there that he, the principal, they can come up with different ideas so that he can still connect with the students, but in a way where everyone feels comfortable.
Yeah, and to us, I think it's common knowledge that you do ask a student before you approach them, you let them come to you, because like I said, kids are going to be kids and they're going to come up to you and they're going to give you hugs, they're going to want your affection. But in this case, there could just be a lack of understanding on his part of what's appropriate. So I agree with Sage about the training school-wide, and then making it school-wide is helpful not just for Mr. J, but it avoids any future issues and this regarding.
So probably, I'll go ahead.
I feel like with the training, and also key part of the training would also be like interacting with students who may have special needs, because there's some cases where they prefer not to be touched, and that might not be evident unless you know how to communicate effectively. So the teachers need to learn how to interact with those kinds of
Diverse populations of students, I agree. And I think once they have the training, it probably is something that needs to be ongoing, right?
Yeah.
Like not just one time thing, but once a year or something of that nature. Okay, last but not least, so under determine if your perspective changed after engaging in the reflective process and or dialogue. Has anyone, we can go around the table. We can start with you, Evelyn. You can take a moment to think about it, but we can start with you. How's your perspective changed?
I don't think my perspective changed on like determining the right course of action, but definitely being able to like see all the sides, like how the students are feeling, and also the principal and Mr. J. I really think it was important to like go through the steps to see like their virtues and their emotions and how this could affect them.
I would say from my perspective, it hasn't changed very much. I think I've learned to have more compassion and to really take the time to see the two sides of a situation. And yeah, I think it was really great to walk through this model to learn. For me, I don't think my perspective has changed, but more has grown in how I can put it and reflect it into my own life, especially the children that are surrounded by my family.
I think for me, my perspective changed because initially I was no contact, and then listening to you all saying, hey, if the child asks for a hug and touch, that's okay. So it changed in that perspective, but also the conflicting virtues. I can kind of see now how a person back is up against the wall or how they have a hard choice to make and they're making the best choice that they can. So like as a parent, Mr. J, I might be like, don't touch my child. But I can also now understand that Mr. J is saying, this is how I'm connecting to the kids. And I didn't think that meant any harm. So that's how my perspective has changed.
I don't think mine changed that much, but I really enjoyed going through and hearing like going through and analyzing both sides, because I would first just to think of the student and like not dig deeper, and I think the model really helped me identify all of that.
I agree with everyone else. I don't really think my perspective changed, but I do think it was really beneficial to break down the different biases and even my own personal biases in regard to the moral dilemma, just because I think I often don't feel like I have any biases, but this has made it clear that I do, and I agree with Sage that it was helpful to see things from Mr. J's perspective and administration's perspective, because I think it's our inclination to just think of the student.
Thank you guys. You guys did a good job. We went through the ICE model.
I think using the ICE approach helps my students actually navigate on a deeper level a moral dilemma. So as future teachers, they're going to come across different moral dilemmas, be them small or big, and they need to be able to make a sound decision without any biases and making sure that all parties involved, their needs are met.
You do use the ICED approach or method often without even realizing it, but it's really helpful to have for when more significant issues do arise, to be able to sit down with other people and break down every detail of it to avoid any bigger issues in the future.
I think before I didn't know what I would do when there was a problem in the classroom, and I just thought I would just go to someone higher up, but this really showed me that you need to break down and really determine every step, and then you can do that with a colleague or someone higher up. But just going through every step, I didn't realize how many steps there were to really understand the problem and solution.